Welcome back, everybody. We are continuing our series of talks about Buddhist philosophy and practice. Tonight, we're focusing more on the actual practice and delving into the techniques of Buddhist meditation. So this is a two-part video. Hopefully, you'll watch the previous one, which provides a little more background material about the importance and the context of Buddhist meditation. So the Buddha did not just teach one technique of meditation. He taught many, many forms, different techniques that people can apply in different ways. So to teach Buddhist meditation generically sometimes is a little challenging, but broadly speaking, we can say that there's two essential aspects, or you could almost say phases or aspects of Buddhist meditation. And the first is what we were just discussing in the previous video, which is in Tibetan, we use the word shine, which means to abide in a peaceful or tranquil, relaxed way. So it's really about calming the storm of thoughts, the onslaught of thoughts, and actually using some techniques to allow the mind to slow down. As we were saying before, when the mind slows down a little bit, it's amazing how things start to come into focus because there is more clarity. One analogy that is traditionally used is you can have a glass and you have a glass and it has water in it, and the nature of water is clear. If you take some sand or some dirt or silt and pour it in there and swirl it around, the water is no longer clear, it's cloudy. And this is analogous to the nature of our mind. If that glass of dirty, silty water sits still long enough, the silt will settle to the bottom and the actual clarity of the water will reemerge. So by allowing our thoughts to settle down, the actual clear mind will start to resurface, perhaps for almost the first time in one's life. And this is very, very important. And this is why meditation is so essential. As we were saying in the previous video, this is about developing good mental hygiene and kind of a healthy state of mind that is not distracted all the time and is not just being victimized by endless thoughts. Because the reality is, most people are not in control of their own minds. You may think you are, but most people, a happy thought makes one happy. A sad thought makes one sad. A jealous thought makes one jealous. An angry thought makes one angry. So we're sort of jerked around by all these thoughts that seemingly we can't control. I've had many people over the years actually say to me, Lama Dawa, I can't meditate. And I think, really? They say, yeah. I can't sit still. My mind is just going. Well, obviously, that's the whole point. And that's the very person that needs to meditate the most. It's hard for most people, especially at first, because the mind doesn't want to be tamed. It doesn't want to be controlled. It doesn't want to slow down and relax. It just wants to do what it does. It's the habit of the mind to generate thoughts. And thoughts are somewhat, we could say, addictive. And they're like a self-fulfilling prophecy. One thought morphs into another thought, and then another, and then another. And what happens? We have a whole storyline unfolding in our mind. We generate our own movies, our own stories, and we buy into them, of course. They're important to us. They're our identity. Buddhist meditation is really about unraveling this whole narrative of buying into the apparent truth of these stories We like our dramas. Where many people are really addicted to having a dramatic life and a dramatic mind. He said this, she said that, they did this, and we're often running, and that's being a worldly person. And I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. I'm just saying that's how it is. But for someone that is, let's say, embracing and embarking on a Buddhist path, the idea is, no, that's not what I want to do. I'm not choosing that. I'm choosing a different way, a different path, which is I want to master my mind and not be victimized by my thoughts. I want to find freedom, because that's the whole notion of, let's say, liberation or enlightenment. It's about freeing ourselves from our habitual shackles. The chains, we're enchained by all these stories and thoughts and dramas that we totally believe in. They matter to us. They're so important. They're our identity. So being willing to say, wait a minute, enough's enough. I'm getting off the train. I'm stopping this. That's the affirming statement that one makes to oneself, the affirming commitment. I'm committing myself to a life, to a journey of not just being on automatic pilot, but being sort of self-responsible and having that healthy, cultivating this healthy mental hygiene, say mental floss instead of dental floss. So mental floss, clean the mind, get those corners and all that garbage out of there, or at least get to a place where those thoughts don't have to jerk us around. There used to be, I've seen this bumper sticker. It's a great saying. It's, don't believe everything you think. Meditation is how we get a crowbar in there and actually get some leverage so that we don't believe everything we think, because by doing the meditation practices, you can start to see thoughts, and seeing a thought for what it is, identifying it, seeing it clearly, understanding it, it loses its power over us. This is the beginning of this journey to self-liberation or freedom, freedom from the tyranny of our thoughts. So that's what we're doing with meditation. We're freeing ourselves from the tyranny of thought. We're taking our life back. What's important is to develop a healthy practice, meaning some kind of consistency. Very important, some kind of, let's say, schedule. So we talk about meditation, the way it's traditionally taught is try to find a time of day when you're not going to be distracted, when you have some quiet, hopefully a peaceful place. It can be outside in nature. It can be just anywhere in your house. It can be whatever works for you. Have a comfortable place to sit down, a place that's quiet, a place that's clean, a place that's actually reserved kind of for your meditation practice. It's very helpful to do these things. Not necessary, not 100% essential, but very, very helpful. And we want to stack the deck in our favor, right? So do all the right things. So ideally in the morning, and most people say, well, I'm so busy in the morning, I've got to get ready for work or school or whatever, or get the kids ready for school, and there's no time. Well, so the whole point of this is, if this is a priority, if this is something one is committing to, and this is kind of what it takes, frankly, then we get up earlier. Maybe we go to bed earlier, or we just, set our alarm clock for, give yourselves that extra 15 or 20 minutes. And that's really all you need to start. We can start simply and humbly and modestly, but we find a clean, quiet place. We sit down. We have very, very important, good posture. The spine is said to should be very straight as you can. So if you have bad posture, if you have a bad back, do your best, work with it, do some yoga, loosen things up in your legs, in your back muscles, so your body won't be too much of a distraction to you. Ideally, your body is just there and will support your mind. And then we breathe naturally. And there are a set of traditional instructions about what to do with your body, what to do with your shoulders, what to do with your legs, what to do with your neck, what to do with your tongue and your eyes. Essentially, it means sit straight, not leaning to one side, not too forward, not too back. I use the word dignified. Have a nice, dignified posture. We can go into any details at another time, or if people have specific questions, we can address those. But basically, if you sit in a situation that's natural and comfortable and relaxed, but dignified and upright, then you're pretty much covering all the bases. Now, many people were taught to meditate and you close your eyes and then you do whatever you do. Most Buddhist meditations are actually instructed to do with the eyes open. So that's a radical change for many people. Now, I'm not saying you cannot do it with your eyes closed. If that's really what you want to do and you're used to it, it's comfortable, works for you, go for it. That's fine. Buddhism is not that rigid. There's a lot of latitude. But I am saying that in many and maybe most Buddhist traditions, the eyes are left open and relaxed. You're not trying to shut out the world. And also when the eyes are closed, it is easier to fall asleep or fall into pursuing one of those storylines, one of those dramas, one of those narratives. So the eyes open keep us present and grounded. And that's the whole idea. Buddhist meditation is about being grounded, in a sense, being present, being here, being in the now. So we're not going to La La Land. We're not trying to get into some blissful, magical, exalted state. The thing about Buddhism is it's very down to earth, very practical. And that's what's so beautiful about it. So we're not trying to do something other than be fully present, fully aware, fully awake, and fully mindful. So the eyes open, people may object and think, oh, my eyes are open, there's too many distractions, I see all these things going on around. Well, actually, not necessarily. Just keep them relaxed and gentle. You're not trying to see anything particularly. The activity is not through your eyes. The activity is through your mind. Now, it's also taught many things can be used as an object of meditation. And by an object of meditation, let me back up for a moment. What we're doing in this preliminary, early kind of beginner phase of meditation, of shine, of tranquilizing or making the mind relaxed and peaceful and soft, is to find an object that we're going to keep coming back to, kind of as a touchstone, you could say, as a touchstone, when the mind gets distracted and lost, because it will. You're going to follow some thought. It's going to be too interesting, too compelling, too juicy to ignore. So you're going to go follow those thoughts. And then at some point, you're going to go, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be meditating. I was just really distracted. You come back to the touchstone. Now, a touchstone can be a pebble or a rock. It can be a piece of wood. It can be a flower. It can be a statue of the Buddha. It can be many things, but usually something natural and simple. But the practice that's really taught for most Buddhists and most in the Tibetan tradition is to use the breath. The breath, just watching the breath, following the breath. And the breath, when we really are mindful and attentive, we realize the breath is not just one thing. There is a phase where the breath goes out. There's a phase where the breath comes in. And there's a phase kind of in between when it's not going out or coming in. So the technique that I teach and that I was taught and that I've practiced for decades is to watch the breath. This is also very much in the Zen tradition. So the breath is very, very commonly used, taught by the Buddha. Why? One thing I could say is you can't breathe in the future. You can't breathe in the past. Every breath, every moment is in the now. The other thing that's very, very important is that the breath is emotionally neutral. You really can't say the breath is good. You can't say it's bad. It just is. It's just breath. That's really helpful, because what we're doing in Buddhist meditation is getting to the natural mind. Again, we are relinquishing fantasy. We're relinquishing wishful thinking. We're relinquishing hope and fear and expectations and things like that. We're letting all of that go. So we are in a sort of a stark, present, very natural state. That's the state of mind of meditation. It's not something concocted. It's not something manufactured. It's not something extraordinary. In fact, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we say the actual true nature of the mind is, the word is actually used in Tibetan, it's translated as ordinary. Just ordinary, plain Jane, vanilla, nothing special, not spicy, bland, you could say. Not necessarily boring, but just objectively real. And that's what we're trying to discover or uncover or experience. The mind that is not in some fantasy or some drama. It's actually very refreshing. It's very calming. It's very sobering. This is a journey of kind of ultimate sobriety in a sense. The natural mind, the ordinary mind. And it's refreshingly beautiful because it's so real. So when we practice, when we meditate, we just watch the breath. There's many ways to do it. Some schools say, and some teachers say, teach, just focus on the point of your nostrils where the breath is leaving and coming back, and put your attention there. Some emphasize just the out breath or just the in breath. You can do whatever you want, but whatever you choose, stick with it. Don't jump around. I think that's important teaching as well. You know, develop some familiarity, some consistency with whatever you're doing. So very good posture, very, very important. Something that feels stable, so you're not going to be squirming around and distracted by your body. As a beginner, maybe 10 minutes. Give yourself 10 minutes. Do it for a few weeks. If not every single day, at least 5 to 6 days a week. If you need a day off or there's some extenuating circumstances, okay, that's just what life does sometimes. But if you can really develop a true practice, a true discipline, make it that kind of a commitment, make it a priority. Sit down, give yourself 10 minutes by the clock, however you want to do it, with an alarm or whatever. Too little, you're not going to really probably give it much of a chance to do much. Too long, you're going to get tired and bored, and you're going to get discouraged. And because you get bored or frustrated, you won't want to return to it, and you won't develop a long-term practice. So do less than you think you're capable of, and stick with that. And then little by little, as the weeks and months go by, you can always build up your endurance, so to speak. you're going to come up against a lot of things. This is stuff we can talk about in later videos. You're going to get impatient. Your mind's going to get agitated. Or it could get very sleepy and tired. There are ways to deal with these things. This is common. There's nothing wrong with you when this happens. It happens to everyone. But a skillful meditator learns to modulate one's meditation session. If one's mind is too busy and too active, there are techniques and ways to kind of calm it down. If it's too dull and sleepy, there's ways to kind of perk yourself up a little bit mentally and find that kind of present, happy medium. This takes some time. It takes practice. Don't expect to be perfect. There's no contest here, no rush. But if you do recognize how important it is for your mental hygiene and for the quality of your life, and you have a long-term goal, a long-term sort of vision that this is just something I'm going to do, we don't leave our house. I always say we don't leave our house in the morning having not brushed our teeth. Nobody does that. Everybody brushes their teeth before they go out to the world, pretty much. I feel the same way about meditation. It's almost unthinkable to have a day where I haven't started with some meditation time, because it sets you right. It gives you perspective. It grounds you, and it reminds you. And you're going to build on the experience as you practice over weeks and months and years and, yes, decades. It will only get better and better and better. It will get more subtle, more profound, more rich, more insightful. If it doesn't, something's wrong. You need to go back to square one, get some help, talk to people that are more experienced or true teachers, and set you right. There's no reason. I have talked to many people over the years that have given up their meditation practice. They tell me they've burned out or been there, done that, and they're just over it. Or the truth is, either their expectations were off, their instruction was off, something was not right, because there shouldn't be any problem. I want to say this. I hope for you that you fall in love with your meditation practice. If it's a chore, if it feels like, oh, this is just so painful, well, at first, maybe it will be a little bit, but you get to the first rung of the ladder, get over that initial, toughness. And it's so rewarding and so beautiful and so enriching. And it does build on itself, and it does get better, better, better. It's a journey. But start the journey off on the right foot with good habits, which is everything I've been trying to describe. Have more or less a set time, if early morning, preferably, because the mind is still relatively calm. It hasn't been all caught up in the events of the day. And also, if you do it in the evening, which many people do, and that's fine if it works for you. But honestly, for many people, the mind is just tired and fatigued after a long day, and meditation really turns into a sleep session for many people. Again, if it works for you, that's great. It really boils down to what works for you and your lifestyle. But I am telling you the tradition and the traditional way, and what seems to work best for many people, is start off the day like that in the morning. There's much more we can talk about, but this is probably a good start. You will become impatient. Your monkey mind, part of its story that it will generate during your meditation, is telling you you're wasting your time. You have better things to do, more important things to do, pressing things to do, to take care of. And you'll probably, most of the time, you may jump up off your mat and go do your day without having finished your 10-minute commitment or your 20-minute commitment or your hour-long commitment or whatever it is you are at your stage of practice. So that's that healthy discipline. It's actually a form of developing patience and realizing that whole thing that we were talking earlier about, which was don't believe everything you think. Don't believe your mind when it tells you, oh, you have better things to do and you better stop meditating and you have to go pay attention to this, that, or the other. That's your mind tricking you, because the mind doesn't want to be tamed. The mind is just a, spoiled child. It wants to get its way. That's how thoughts and habits of the mind work. So this is how we develop those mental muscles, that toughness, that tough love. No, I'm going to sit here, even though my mind is telling me I shouldn't be and I need to do other things. I'm not listening to it. I'm going to just keep watching the breath and keep coming back to it. And that's it. That's the ordinariness of the practice. It's not particularly exciting or exotic or, anything like that. But that's precisely the point. So as we do this, and you get better at identifying the fact that you were distracted and following some thoughts or some story, and you come back to the simplicity of just watching the breath without judgment, you will find thoughts calm down. They slow down. They lose their force. They lose their power in a sense. And as you get better and better at this, it'll be easier to stay with the breath for longer and longer periods of time. And the distractions will get less and less, fewer and farther between. So that's essentially how we start off meditation. From the Buddhist perspective, again, if you really feel you're a practicing Buddhist, you can start with some basic affirmations, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind that we've talked about in a previous video, the refuge prayer and things like that are all available. But have a consistent practice and fall in love with it. Enjoy it. Don't get too excited about it. Again, it should be just an ordinary, wholesome thing to do. So, mental floss.